One of the more interesting cases in all of media is a trope called tough act to follow. It's interesting due to the fact that we have expected people we look up to be better than their last release. Whether it's a director filming a movie after their last movie won several awards, whether an author has released a magnum opus, whether an artist has put their effort into one creative aspect that garners praise. The question after the dust settles is, what's next? How will they move forward with their next project? The pressure is on when there is an announcement on the release, and there is wonder to what will happen. What will the person do? Will they stick with the thing that garnered them praise, staying the same with little or no change? Will they try something completely different and go outside of the box? Either way, it will elicit some strong reaction. The anticipation is a boiling point that can throw some of their game off or downright walk away, either wanting to go out on top or because the pressure is destroying them from the inside out. What if it's not their best work? What if they're lost in the creative way? This, of course, applies to music. Most musicians have made an album or song in some cases that are so good, the question of what's next is eventually going to be asked. With promoting a critically acclaimed album for months at a time, going mostly all over the world, there is very little time to catch one's breath. And sometimes a follow-up to a massive album could be considered disappointing. And it happens more often than one may think. For one band, they reached a tough act to follow, released one more album, and in hindsight, it may have been the beginning of the end. My Chemical Romance were coming off of their most successful album of their career, except it was exhausting. The album took 6 months to create and over a year to tour it, resulting in over 140 shows. They were tired after all of that and it would take a whole video to talk about. They went their separate ways, with Frank continuing to make music with his new project Leathermouth, who went on their very first tour, 3 months after the Black Parade tour ended. Ray was recently married, and Gerard and Mikey were spending time with their families. Gerard was diving into comics, co-creating the Umbrella Academy, and Way was relieved that music was not his only creative outlet. But that was also a problem with MCR. In terms of the band, he was the creative hub. However, he was unable to come up with any ideas and could not see a future. The band was still healing from this long period with the Black Parade when they went back into the studio, and they made their version of Bob Dylan's Desolation Row for the Watchmen soundtrack. This spark of energy was what convinced the band to make new music, so they started work with producer Brendan O'Brien, who worked with Green Day and Muse on 21st Century Breakdown and The Resistance. The band went back into the studio in June 2009, a year after the last tour ended. They did not want to do another Black Parade, that much is for sure. However, Gerard was still struggling for direction, and the way that they created Black Parade would not work for him, so they started work on their fourth album, Danger Days. Except not yet. They made songs for an album called Save Yourself, I'll Hold Them Back. However, just when the mixing started, Gerard lost faith in the songs, and the set of songs, later titled Conventional Weapons, would be released much later. After taking a brief holiday, Gerard got inspiration from a comic book idea from Sean Simon, an old bandmate of Frank's from Pensy Prep, which Simon called the Killjoys. So with the help of Rob Cavallo, the person who heard their scrap songs, who became the producer for the actual fourth album Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, which would be released in November of 2010 after an 11-month-long recording session. The reviews were good, but they were not Black Parade good. This album was a disappointment compared to their last output, but it was not by any means a bad album. But why did Danger Days not reach the heights of Black Parade? Well, there are a few reasons why. First of all was the image change. Now, when people think of MCR, they think guys wearing all black, appealing to a lot of people in the emo culture in the mid-2000s. The gothic aesthetics, the post-hardcore aggression, and its theatrical sound were very present in their first 3 albums. However, when Danger Days was released, they looked like different people, which was very jarring to say the least. They wore more colorful clothing, and there was their musical change as well. After years of post-hardcore aggression and prog rock, Danger Days leaned more towards power pop, dance rock, and indie rock. It was not a welcome change to some, as the last album, Black Parade, dealt with war, death, and heavy angst in a crapsack world along with a depressing afterlife. Danger Days was much more of a breather album about a group of outlaws in a post-apocalyptic version of California, fighting an evil corporation. With its high-octane songs, it may seem like a lighter and softer album until partway through when it gets really dark, though not as dark as Black Parade. However, those who are used to the style of the last three albums didn't really gravitate towards the high energy, especially the emo crowd. And there lies another reason as to why Danger Days was not as good as their previous outing. Black Parade was a tough act to follow. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes issues with the Black Parade, a very, very, very ambitious album compared to 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. The band were fighting, the Way siblings were going through a lot of dark stuff, and they were on the verge of a collapse. Their hard work paid off because the album ended up being their best album by many people, ending up on many year-end lists of 2006, and going triple platinum. So when Danger was released 3 years later, it had a lot of pressure to follow, and unfortunately, only went gold, selling over 1 million copies with a broken base within the fandom due to the aforementioned lighter and softer style. And despite the change, the story was rather complicated compared to Black Parade, which was dark but relatively straightforward. And because of Danger Days, there was a bit of tension within the group due to conventional weapons being trash. Not only were some members sour about that, not being their actual follow-up to Parade, but they didn't really care for said Danger Days storyline. But they went through touring it, which leads to another reason as to why Danger Days fell a bit, was the lack of promotion. The Black Parade was a mega tour with over 140 shows, going well into over a year. It was an exhausting, punishing tour with members falling ill, getting homesick, and being sick of each other at some point, as well as being so sick of their Black Parade songs that they ended up playing songs from 3 Cheers to shake things up a little. Despite all that trouble, it raised interest and people bought their albums. It helped sell their merch and make them one of the biggest rock bands of the 2000s, even to the likes of Green Day's American Idiot that was released years earlier. However, with Danger Days, the band wanted the tour, titled the World Contamination Tour, to be smaller, less ambitious, touring for only over 100 shows, which is a lot, but it caused the record to sell less because it was less, and despite the smaller scale, the band were burned out, especially Gerard. According to the book Not What It Seems, The True Life of My Chemical Romance, when My Chemical Romance played what would become their last show, Gerard mentioned that something felt off. The show was good. Not great, not bad, just good. I am acting. I never act on stage, even if it appears I am. The amps, the cheers, all begin to fade. All that was left was the voice inside, and I could hear it clearly. The voice told him it was over. Eventually, after a few false starts, they broke up in 2013. The album would be vindicated by history as a welcome change, but the reason why the vindication took a little while was for the last reasoning: timing. Rock music wasn't all that popular when it came to the 2010s. Don't get me wrong, rock music was still there. Gorillaz released Plastic Beach, Alkaline Trio released This Addiction, Linkin Park released 1,000 Suns, and Lil Wayne released Rejected. But in terms of 2010, the year was dominated by other genres. Eminem released Recovery with the massive hit single Not Afraid. Kanye released Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and it was called his greatest album yet. And there was also the pop explosion. People like Justin Bieber, Katy Perry, Kesha, and Willow Smith had massive songs come out that year. And with pop, hip-hop, and R&B dominating the charts, rock just got lost in the shuffle, and Danger Days suffered because of it. And it wasn't the only rock album from a major label or a major band to suffer from this moment. 1,000 Suns was to Linkin Park as Danger Days was to MCR. Both were very, very, very polarizing when they first came out. This Addiction was not a great follow-up to its previous Alkaline albums, and arguably after. And even Plastic Beach, which was a genre roulette of an album, though it was mostly kind of rock, had sales suffer because it was not what people wanted. So the start of the decade had rock music decline in popularity, and it has taken a hit that has not really recovered from since. Danger Days was a good album, but it came out at a time when the music scene changed, and there wasn't any room for it to blossom like Black Parade did. Once again, Danger Days was never a bad album. It still had positive reviews and sold quite well, just not Black Parade well. The album did take chances, but with the aforementioned reasons, it just didn't fit towards expectations. It was an album that artists should strive for after a massive project. Don't do the same thing before. People will compare and the results will be mixed at best. So remember, just because an album is different sounding, just because it sold less than other albums, does not make it a bad album. Rock will make its comeback. It's just a matter of that spark.